Good morning, everybody. Thank you for making the time to come along to the fantastic Inspire Theatre, hidden away here in the inside Upsell Centre. My name is April Hutchinson. I'm the editor of TTG Luxury magazine, and as part of TTG Media, we're delighted to be a partner for WTM London and to see some luxury content on the agenda. I'd love to introduce to you now Anthony Berklich, who is the founder of Inspired Citizen, which is a luxury travel platform based in New York. He's also a consultant to many hotels and destinations around the world, key influencer, as well as being contributing writer for Harper's Bazaar in the US, and he's going to talk about how we can maximise revenue in the luxury space. Please welcome Anthony.
Hello. Thank you, April. Hello, everybody. How are you? Hope you're doing well. I'm sure you're tired and busy and have a lot on your plate. So thank you so much for coming in here and listening to me talk. Hopefully it'll be informative, very casual, and question answer. So if someone wants to interrupt me at all, feel free. Like April said, I am the founder of a luxury travel platform. We're based in New York. It's called Inspired Citizen, and we cover experiential travel with different destinations around the world, from common destinations to destinations that are a little bit more far-flung and exotic. I'm also a writer for Harper's Bazaar there, where I cover hidden gem destinations that a lot of Americans in particular don't necessarily think of for their holiday or vacations. And I also consult for hotels and destinations, trying to help them really rethink how they look at their product and how they market that to the consumer that they're going after. So again, thank you so much. I just wanted to start by talking about who the new luxury traveler is. I think a lot of people are a little confused by that these days, because there's a generation of perceivably, I don't want to use the word older, but more experienced travelers that have been traveling their entire lives, that might be in their 60s or 70s, maybe late 50s, that think about travel very differently than kind of a new generation or a millennial. I'm 32 years old. I'm technically a millennial myself, at the older end of that spectrum. But I'm also very in tune and tapped into people of my parents' generation who have been traveling a long time, but kind of think about it a little bit differently. So anyway, so the new luxury traveler is really, I think, the millennial, typically born in the 80s or 90s, and they're ranging in the ages of 20s to 30s. They really perceive luxury in a very different way. They focus more on details and really the experience. They're willing to pay for an experience that is unique and special, different, not feeling packaged or put together for them. They have a little bit of a big ego, so they like to share those things on Instagram and Facebook, and having something that is special and different is important to them. The next set is, I guess, what's categorized as midlifers. People in their 50s, 60s, they're recently retired. They're kind of looking for that next chapter in their life, or looking to start that next chapter, and travel is a very big part of that. So again, they're willing to spend money on any travel experience that they deem worthy or comfortable, and they will research online for that travel or through traditional media. But they're typically people that like their travel taken care of, their details organized for them. They're not very spontaneous. They're more planned out group of travelers. And really the main difference, I think, between a midlifer and a millennial traveler are millennials are, like I said, more spontaneous. They're adventurous. They like to share their travel experiences through social media. And midlifers tend to be more planned and have all their details coordinated for them. So what do they have in common? Because to really find out how to maximize your revenue amongst both groups of travelers, you have to know what they have in common. And I think both of them, both groups, are triggered by emotion. something that sparks them emotionally, whether that's an experience in Africa with an animal or a particular group of people there, or in Europe with history, something that sparks an emotion in them. Both pay very particular attention to detail, some in the same way, some in different ways, but detail is very, very important. And both groups respond well, studies show, to service. I think everyone responds well to service, but these two groups respond really well to service and employees that make them feel like they are on their side, that they have an advocate wherever they're traveling to. Both groups look for communication a little bit differently. Millennials want to be communicated a lot through social media, and midlifers more through personal notes and direct marketing and emails. They'll actually open your emails instead of deleting them. Now, how do you reach the two very different segments of travelers to get them to spend more money without spending your money? You have to know your audience, and I assume a lot of people in here are from hotels or destinations or travel agents. Know your audience and realize that millennials will pay for a photographable, special, and social media worthy experience. You really have to think if you're communicating with them on that level, or are you communicating in a way that they really won't perceive or receive the way that you want them to. Midlifers, like I said earlier, really want their details taken care of for them and want everything to be hassle-free. I know my parents, my mom plans a trip to Paris. It takes her 2 years to plan it. She's got her restaurants figured out 2 years in advance. And people who are, my age range are planning it overnight or with 3 days notice and running off. So you have to pay attention to that to know how to communicate to them correctly. I think the way to upsell the luxury traveler without spending more money is, again, to know your product well and to really rethink it. If your destination with a rainy season, why would you discount that season and write it off as low-income periods? I think I've dealt with a lot of destinations in like the Caribbean per se that have very heavy hurricane rainy seasons where they think, okay, well, we're not going to get that many customers in the door, so we're kind of going to use that for administrative work and whatever. But the truth is, they've really sold themselves short because there's so much to do and so much to market that way if you just rethink, the destination in itself and what it has to offer. If you're a hotel in a ski town and, obviously skiing is the very obvious choice, but what can you do in the fall, in the spring, and in the summer where there's no snow around? You have to rethink your product. I really believe in creating high perceived value experiences, and that doesn't necessarily mean spending money on that, but creating something that looks expensive, that people will pay for because they perceive it as expensive. So I think, thinking of things like partnering with local businesses and organizations that are maybe willing to, charge something very, very nominal or tiny, where you can partner with them, and maybe it's an artisan who create a welcome gift for your guests at a hotel, or somebody local in your destination who knows something about it that's special, that can share that with your visitors, and maybe they're looking for exposure in a particular way and they won't charge you a lot to partner with them. I think it's thinking about what you can offer that no one else does in the region, where you can build your experience from. If you're known for something odd like dog sledding, or you're a hotel with an amazing floral designer that's not really recognized yet, can you create a package around that to upsell to your guests? But how can you create an event or some sort of something around that that can help you sell and bring your sales to the next level? I think too, again, if you're a hotel, a hotelier or a hotel group, thinking about the minor details, if there's competing properties in the area, what if you offer something different like a really, really late checkout if you can, or a really, really early check-in. I don't know, go maybe a gift on arrival that's made by a local artisan, or warm chocolate chip cookies or brownies. That seems very trivial, but costs you next to nothing and makes a big impact on guests, I think, and how people perceive your brand and how they'll return and be willing to buy more from you in the future. I think DMOs, destination marketing organizations, you need to know your destination inside and out, as I've said. Paying attention to things that, let's say you have an ugly city in your state or your region. It's not very attractive. A lot of people don't visit there. How can you rethink that city in a way that people will get excited about again? If your destination is not known for food, how can you change that? Food is something everybody loves. Can you partner with certain restaurants or even local people and create some sort of interesting branding event or mark that will eventually turn into a sales opportunity for you? Even if let's say you're France and everyone knows Paris and everything there is to know about Paris, there's 101 guides on Paris. How can you rethink that city differently, talking about your hidden gems or things that people might not go to during the norm? I think if we look at a few examples of this, at least that I've experienced in my travels, where I was impressed by the way that they were really upselling their consumer. There was a hotel in Savannah, Georgia, which is very beautiful. I don't know if you guys have been, but it's called the Mansion at Forsyth Park. And they took something very mundane, like housekeeping services, which is essential for any hotel. But they basically created a Keeping a Southern Home package. And in the U.S., at least, the South is kind of perceived as genteel and regal in a certain way of a bygone era that no longer really exists. And so they turned that nostalgia and then housekeeping service by not partnering, but actually inviting their housekeepers to work with guests and teaching them how to fold correctly, press correctly, fluff pillows correctly. But that sold for $150 per guest that was willing to participate, and it sold for a long time and was a popular thing there. There's a resort in Montana, the state of Montana, called the Resort at Paws Up, which is a luxury 5-star resort. They partnered with a retired photographer from National Geographic who was sitting around and not really doing too much, but staring at the mountains, the beautiful mountains of Montana. They gave him a very small fee because he was willing to just, work a little bit again. And they sold big photo workshops with him through their resort, where he would take them out and teach them how to photograph landscapes or animals. Those sold for $750 per package. So just that little thought and brainstorm turned into, fairly sizable sales for these people. A destination. I'm from Michigan originally, from the Detroit area, and it's not known to be the prettiest city. It's in fact known to be a little dangerous. It's now, I'm very happy to say, starting to be reimagined and rethought for people that are coming, and it's kind of like a cool brand now in the United States. But it took a while for that to happen, and before that happened, Pure Michigan, which is the tourism organization for the state of Michigan, worked with the city and people to turn abandoned warehouses into massive haunted houses around Halloween time, bring people to Detroit, get them aware of the city, and create a cool event around something that could have just been useless, really, and brought more revenue into the city. Another one, I mentioned the Caribbean before, the island of Dominica, where I was recently. They offer beaches and sea like any other Caribbean island, but it's rainy nearly 5-6 months out of the year, and what do you do during that time? So they turn to their rainforests and their rivers and other experiences on the island that I guess are unique, and offered things like hiking to their boiling lake and forest bathing and birding, like bird watching tours. So they began to attract an off-season guest that brought more revenue to the island when it really could have been a completely dead season. One of my favorite examples is Estonia, the country of Estonia, which I love. And it's a beautiful place, but it really wasn't known, I think, globally for its food. Certainly wasn't Italy, certainly wasn't France with food. but they thought they had something to offer. So the tourism board turned a local hobby, which was mushroom picking in the forest, which a lot of locals do with their families, into a marketing effort, and got people to think of Estonia for their wild forage mushrooms, and brought people there and press there for different trips revolving around that. They also partnered with residents of the city of Tallinn to establish home restaurants during the summer, where guests, visitors from out of the country or out of the region could come into Tallinn and have dinner at a local's home, and they would cook a set menu every night for them. Again, this isn't something that you would think of for Estonia necessarily with their food, but they got a lot of press and attention and increased revenue and visitors because of these programs, which were basically came out of a brainstorm. I believe, for all hotels and destinations, again, don't discount the small things. Soap in the bathroom matters. If you're a beautiful boutique hotel in the south of France, why are you importing Italian soap? Shouldn't you be using, locally made soap from Provence or something? I think, anything that you want to sell, any chance to upsell, needs to be wrapped in a story. I think people buy into stories, and authentic stories that hook them, again, emotionally and get them excited about something. And that's really what people are buying at the end of the day, aside from the product. It's the story around it. So what story are you telling, and which story are you selling? To keep people returning, I really think you have to constantly reimagine even the packages or ideas that are working for you currently. So if there's an experience or something that is your biggest seller as a hotel or as a destination, how can you rethink that season after season to make it exciting again? If you want to keep the millennials coming, who have big spending power now, if you want to keep midlifers who are ready to spend their retirement funds with you, you really should think about that and how to get them excited about your destination over and over and over again. And communicate what you're offering and ask them what they want. If you want to appeal to a 35-year-old with money, you really have to talk to them how they want to be spoken to. And a lot of them are finding destinations, as you all know, on Instagram. Communicate with them there. Don't send them a postcard in the mail. It's going to get thrown away. Don't send them an email that probably will not get open. Follow them on their social media account and comment on one of their photos and get them excited, or give them a reason why they should return to you or come after you. Midlifers, like I said earlier, a little bit different. Send them a handwritten note. Yes, that's annoying a little bit, and someone has to take the time to sit down and write it, but it works and it makes an impact. So remember how you're communicating and who the people are that are receiving that communication. Nothing is too out of the box. Going back to social media, I would continue to look at what your customers sharing and posting, and don't be afraid to step out. Offer something completely off the wall, different. As long as it ties back to your brand, I think it's important to constantly have somebody on your team who makes everyone else uncomfortable. I often do that when I travel and work with destinations or hotels. I come in and I'll say something to them and really make them nervous or scared, but we find a middle ground and something that will work, that will kind of get people's attention. And I think it's really important to do that in a very noisy, cluttered environment. So that's sort of it in a nutshell. I know I sped through those slides, but I want to get people's questions if you have any, and try to help you in any way that I can while I'm here, and feel free to ask questions. I can't really see, but if anyone has any questions. Okay. Did I see someone's hand over there? No. Okay. No questions? Nobody? Okay. Well, thank you very much. And I appreciate you coming. And I hope you all have a great show. So thank you.